Right, hello everyone, and welcome to our summer event. So it's great to see so many of you here. The last time we all met on this scale was obviously at the House of Lords a few months ago for our leadership event, which was very well received, and thanks all for those of you that came along. Now we've got lots of people following on the live stream from home. We obviously worked right up to the end of their shifts and couldn't get into the City of London like the rest of some of us here. So for those of you at home, welcome as well. And if you have any questions for our esteemed panel, then please do put them in the chat and we will get to your questions later on. So finance is quite a tricky subject, isn't it? Because we all need money to live, we all need money to survive, we all want to have good quality of life, we want the opportunities that it affords us. But as busy clinicians, we often don't have time to really sort ourselves out and make sure the money that we've worked so hard for works for us. So I just wanted to think about when I was, junior doctor, resident doctor, life was very different. And especially some of the younger people in the room may not even remember this, but when we're talking about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the consultants I worked for, or when I did general practice rotations, the senior GPs were living a completely different life to the doctors of today. The consultants I worked for had a 4 or 5 bedroom house in a nice part of London. They had a country house in Hampshire or Sussex or somewhere very nice as well. And they had a holiday house in Mallorca, Tenerife, south of France often. And they had a completely different expectation and different lifestyle, and it's completely different. And while none of us in this room are aspiring to have super yachts or helipads in our back gardens, we do recognize that we do all work very hard. And for those of you that are still in the training part of your career, the relentless exams and night shifts and thinking where your next job is going to be is very daunting. It's very hard, and you want some reward at the end of that. And one thing I've really noticed is that senior clinicians don't have the same conversations with junior doctors and clinicians that I used to receive from my bosses when I was coming up through the system. We don't have the same, it was not very normal for consultants to invite their staff, their junior colleagues for Christmas, to Christmas parties in their homes, garden parties in their gardens in the summer, and we don't have those same conversations. And I know I've benefited greatly from those experiences, whereby I remember when I became a consultant, 2 decades ago, a senior thoracic surgeon said to me, there's one thing you do before you start thinking about the money going out of your pay packet each month, just sign up for added years to your NHS pension, which basically means you catch up on the years, because the NHS pension, the old scheme was based on a 40-year career. So most of us didn't qualify till 24 or 25, so you'd have to really work to 65. And if you did research like I did, that's 3 years lost. So he said, just pay those added years. If you do it right at the very beginning of your consultant career, you won't even notice that money going out. And that means, which is what he said to me at the time, when you get into your 50s, you'll be so grateful, because if you want to retire at 58 or 60 or 62, you can do a full pension. It was such a great scheme that, of course, it's no longer available. So you can't buy back added year in the same way. But the point I'm making is that senior clinicians told their junior colleagues all the tricks, all the ways to make what you're earning and what the NHS pension can offer you, and whether to get an ISA and whether to do a buy-to-let, all those small sort of things where those conversations were had in theatre coffee rooms and end of ward rounds and so forth. And we don't have that anymore because we all work in our silos, work on shifts and so forth. So one of the reasons I wanted to organise this event was that we'd have those conversations. We will learn from the experts, we'll learn from each other, and all the work that you do day in, day out, the pay you get, you maximize that to make sure that when you get to the stage in your career where you want that financial freedom, when you want to be able to say, I'd rather only work 20 hours a week rather than 60 hours a week, you can do that. Right, so let's get to the reason why we're all here. When you think about finance, when you think about money, when you think about security, when you think about, am I going to be comfortable or not, you could, which what many people nowadays do, is go onto ChatGPT, put your various income streams in, put in how old you are, put in whether you've got an ISA, you can put all this stuff in, and ChatGPT will give you an extremely good, and there are other platforms as well, will give you a really good overview. And I would recommend that as a starting point if you're not sure what you're doing with your money, because it can just basically trawl through all this financial information and give you some ideas. But it's an idea. If you actually want to make it happen and you want to make sure it happens securely, I know like one of my colleagues who met someone at the tennis club who gave him some great advice just during the pandemic when everyone's going crazy about investing in the next drug, the next vaccine company that's going to make a fortune. And he lost a lot of money because, as doctors, we're not financial professionals. So if anyone's going to make money, it's the people who are up all night trading and getting that quick win. By the time we hear about it, it's too late and we lose money. So ChatGPT is a great starting point to get the ideas. But when you actually need to actually execute your plan and get financial security, you do need professionals. And that's why we brought three of the top professionals here tonight to assist in this discussion. So let's meet the professionals. We'll come back to that at the end. So meeting on our panel, I'd like to welcome Collar on the stage. Yeah. I'm going to say a few words about who you are and how you're going to help these doctors be comfortable and financially free.
Does this work?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Carla. As you can see, this is me. I'm a chartered financial advisor. I work at SPF Private Clients, which is part of Howden Private Clients, which is why we're all here today. So how I help, a lot of my clients at the moment are certainly gearing up for retirement. So it's just making sure at the moment everything's in order. Does it work? We do a lot of things like cash flow modelling, which is looking at what you've got where, what's the impact of taxation, growth, longevity, risk, all those sorts of things. So it's just making sure that everything is working as it should do. And it's also working out, are there any gaps? Is there anything else more that you need to be looking into on the investment side of things, be targeting potentially a better growth rate or wherever it might be. But a lot of the time it is retirement planning, inheritance tax planning, and overall saving people money on tax. And that's a lot of what I do.
Thank you. Right, next slide. Our next panelist is Stephen Sampson, who's Senior Partner at Milton Avis. And I just declare interest here. I've been with Milton Avis since I became a consultant 22 years, and they've looked after me very well. And this is a Senior Partner who has helped me through lots of different, difficult, but really useful discussions about finances and what to invest in and what not to, and whether to have a limited company, all those things that you're going to talk about. So Stephen Sampson, please come up to stage. And Stephen Sampson, whilst being the Senior Partner at Milton Avis, is not just an accountant, he also sits on a number of different boards and advises lots of companies about how to grow. So, Stephen.
Hi, I suppose my greatest claim to fame is actually for John for over 10 to 13 years, because John is without doubt the cleverest of my doctors. He and I do genuinely communicate between 11 and 3 in the morning. He sends me these complicated questions at 11 o'clock, and I answer them at 3:30 in the morning because I never sleep. So I am a somewhat unusual accountant in that I became a partner in a big firm at 28. I retired at 40 odd, set up a property debt and equity fund. There was a crash in 2008, so that collapsed, but we did 4 billion euros of deals, so did okay. And then I bought this practice, which had all these doctors. And so I looked about what doctors need. So we act for a lot of doctors. We act for a few concierge businesses as well. That's interesting. And I've just been made a non-exec of a new concierge business. So we'll talk about that later. And I hope that I can give you the benefit of my 50 years of working, where I started to knowing absolutely nothing about everything. Then I learned quite a bit about quite a lot. And now I know absolutely everything that I don't know. So I'll help you where I can.
Thank you, Stephen. Right, and one more panelist to bring up to the stage. Danielle, friend, come up. Danielle runs a practice in Kent, in Tunbridge Wells, called Create Balance. And they do general stuff, but they're also very much specialists when it comes to protecting your resources and tax planning and those things. So Danielle, do you want to give us a bit of introduction to who you are and what Create Balance does?
Will do. Thank you very much, John, for inviting me along this evening. I'm very excited to be here. So I am Danielle Friend. I am the Managing Director of Create Balance. We are in Tunbridge Wells in Kent on the Abergavenny estate, which is in a place called Eridge, which is between Tunbridge Wells and Crowborough. What I mainly do in my role every day is I help businesses and managing directors sort of optimise cash flow and prepare them for sale. In my other role, I also do FD services for an air ambulance charity called Wiltshire and Bath Air Ambulance Charity. I don't know if you've ever heard of them or. I've been working with them for 13 years now, and that is quite a significant part of what I do day in, day out. So what I tend to do is exit planning and restructuring for businesses. So we would look at how somebody has structured their businesses, and we look at whether there is a different structure or an optimised structure we can put in place in order to get some tax efficiencies available for people. And that
Thank you.
is me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Right, so we thought it'd be really useful to go through some case studies tonight. These are people I've talked to at various of these events over the last couple of years, who I've given some advice to, or not advice to, but they've certainly asked what my opinion was. And so the first case study is probably something you can think about. Either you were there in the past, you're there now, or about to get there, you're just starting off. So this is a registrar who's been a doctor about 7 years or so, who's got a reasonable income, maybe not by London standards, but certainly by national standards, it's reasonable income, but is saddled with a lot of student debt. 5 or 6 years of medical school left a lot of debt behind. They're paying, quite a sizable London rent. And they've always been really careful about how they spend money, how they save money. They're quite keen to save for to buy a property. They're still in the NHS pension scheme. They realise that's important. But they're quite not able to save quite enough to get that property they would like. So they're thinking to themselves, do they just really have 2 years of hardship and really keep saving and saving and saving? Or, life's short, should they just try and, loosen those financial constraints a bit and try and spend a bit more money? So, Carla, I know you do a lot at the other end of the spectrum of people who are near at the end of career, but to get to that point, you need to start planning early. So
Absolutely.
this is, and that's one of the take-home messages for tonight. If you want to be in a position where you do have that financial freedom, you can decide, I want to give it all up, I want to go part-time, or I want to buy a house in the south of France. You have to start early, and that's why this case study is really interesting. So they've worked for a few years.
Yeah.
They're not, poor, but they've got to pay rent, they've got to pay their student debt, but they want to buy something. What advice would you give our registrar?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I do speak to people like Sarah almost every day. And I think, like you say, good salary, potentially not by London numbers. Gross salary looks good on paper.
Yeah.
What she's actually receiving on her net pay monthly packet, probably not so great. You've got the student debt coming off that on a monthly. You've got the high rate of income tax on top of that, and then of course pension contributions, national insurance, etc. So she's probably feeling from month to month not so great, and especially with London rent as well. So a lot of the kind of questions we'll be helping Sarah with is ultimately get a good mortgage advisor. So we do mortgages at Howden as well. We are fully independent on that basis. So we work with all the banks. Often by getting some good mortgage advice, you can probably see what your proper borrowing capacity is on a decent salary like that. You can probably even get a 95% mortgage. That would be that element of it.
If you get a 95% mortgage, are the interest rates that much higher? Is it worth saving a bit longer to get a lower loan to value, or you think just get on the property ladder when you can?
I would say get on it when you can. For someone like Sarah, risk averse, like you said, she's probably not going to be happy paying huge rent increases. There's certainty on that. So I'd say get on the property ladder. And to be honest, with London rent as it is, you're probably going to save a little bit of money, if anything. But again, it comes down to having some good mortgage advice when with those interest rates. It's ultimately, can we look at every rate across the whole of market? And that's where you're often going to find a better interest rate, especially with a high loan.
Sure.
Loan
Okay.
value.
Now, I remember when I got my first mortgage, the mortgage companies were falling over themselves to have doctors as their clients because they thought you're going to secure a job, you're going to be definitely paying that mortgage for the next 25 years. I got 100% mortgage when I bought my first flat. Some of my friends got 105% mortgages. They got the whole asking price plus 5% on top to do furnishing and all the rest of it. And that seems so strange nowadays, but it was really different. But your message is still, it's worth trying to get that 5% together and trying to find a good deal. Okay, Stephen's going to come in, I think.
I agree, but I would look at it slightly differently in this sense. First of all, a 30-year-old at her stage of training may not geographically want to stay in the location she currently is working.
Good point, yeah.
And therefore buying is maybe not necessarily the right thing, although I totally agree you should try and get on the ladder. Because unlike us at my age, we benefited from very low financing costs. Stamp duty was very low. Interest rates actually went bonkers for a period of time, but not too long. Interest rates have stayed relatively low and will stay relatively low for a long period of time. But cost of moving, stamp duty is huge. And capital growth is not there like it was in our day. But that sounds like I would advise Sarah not to buy. I would advise her to buy, but not necessarily now, unless she's going to stay where she is. And the reason is because for every client I've ever known throughout my whole career, I don't think it's ever going to change. And for me, the main asset you're going to build up and the main tax efficient asset is going to be your own home. So unless any government changes the principal private residence exemption, which is more complicated than people think, but I don't think they will change it because it'd be politically suicide, then you will build up a home one day when you come to probably die and give it to your children, but at some point you will have a tax-free asset, and that will probably be in your personal balance sheet best asset you'll ever have. So buy a home as early as you can, and that would be my advice on the home front.
Okay. And one thing that people struggle with, and I'm sure some people in the audience will say that in the Q&A, is that do you buy to the maximum you can afford? Because you don't want to keep moving every 2 or 3 years. Is that good advice?
You want the best house in the worst road, and
that's great. About best house in the worst road, yeah.
And debt doesn't go up. Debt goes down with inflation. If you borrow 500,000 to buy a property today, or maybe that sounds too big, but 500,000, that's only worth 500,000 in 10 years' time. But with inflation, that makes it worth less. Whereas your house will go up with inflation, hopefully. So debt is a good balance to inflation.
Sure. Okay. Do you want to come in?
So I did have one suggestion, and that is a lifetime ISA might be an option. So I do agree with Stephen about not necessarily buying a property at the very beginning because you don't know where you're going to be, what
Sure.
hospital you're going to end up at.
Yeah.
But having a lifetime ISA, so you can save up to £4,000 a year and you give a 25% government bonus on that as well, which will be quite good towards a deposit. So anybody that's younger who's saving up towards a deposit for a home, that might be some really good advice to give
Yeah.
them.
Completely agree. Unless you want to buy in London.
Unless you
probably
want to
can't.
buy in London, and it's capped as well. It's capped at 450.
So what's the London exemption?
No, it's just the property prices in London. So there's a cap that you can buy at if you use a lifetime ISA
yeah.
of 450k, is it?
450,
Yeah,
yeah.
450. So unless you want to live in a shoebox, it might be a bit difficult in London.
Okay, so
But absolutely, if you're
it's
trying to
London.
live
We've got-
somewhere around,
We've got a national audience
Yeah.
who are online.
Free
So
money
yeah,
from the government. That's good, right?
absolutely.
free
Yeah.
money from the
Bonus.
government. And what this whole idea about the student debt, is there any things you've learned about in your work dealing with student debt? Do you just
Well,
have to pay it like a tax, or is there any
I
benefit for
wouldn't
paying off
pay it
sooner?
back early.
You would not pay it back early.
It does get written off after, I think it's 30 odd years. or
Depends.
something.
Okay.
Depends which
Depends-
plan you're on.
Depends which
Yeah.
plan you're on.
Yeah.
So debt's a good thing. People don't think debt's a good thing. Debt's a good thing. It's good to die with debt as well. So have as much debt as you can get your hands on, as long as you can afford it. No, but I'm being serious. Debt is good, provided you use the money a good purpose. So don't be afraid of debt. Don't pay back your student loan. I know it's interest. I know it hurts, but it's relatively cheap. I just feel sorry that any of you had to pay it.
Right. Okay.
But I never went to university because I was too poor to go to university. It's true. And my dad said, "You've got to get a job." So off I went to BDO and got a job. And there
It's
you go.
history, right?
This is history.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's what we might do is actually take from the people who are at that stage of their careers in the audience. Have any of you got any thoughts or questions on being that stage of your career where you're not quite sure? We've got advice: don't pay off your student debt. Do you get onto the property ladder? Do you have a lifetime ISA?
I would like to say, advice that John gave about your pension. It is one of your greatest assets. Even the new pension rules are still the greatest asset. You won't appreciate it now when you're 30, but when you're in your 50s and you start looking towards retirement, you will appreciate the value of that pension. It is. Still
That's good advice. Yeah, because it might be tempting to think, oh, I'll get about that £400 a month now, but you know what? If you were trying to get a private pension to that level, it just would never. You could never do it, could you?
The difficulty is in life, as I'm one of the eldest in this room, no doubt, is that when you start off, when I was 28 and became a partner, I thought that life would go on forever, and all I talked about was sport and things I can't mention in this mixed company. And now what I talk about is health and health insurance and how I'm going to afford to be able to retire. So, when you're in your 60s, you are looking at retirement and income. And we'll come on to that.
We'll come to that in the case study, yeah.
But now in your 30s, it's a balance, and you've got to find a balance between living today and living for tomorrow. And it's hard. Everyone's got a different balance. It's very tough.
Yeah.
You have amazing jobs, and it's tough.
Can I ask you a question about and this really got crazy with COVID and subsequently, where people were downloading loads of these different apps on your phone, various companies that were advertising aggressively on social media, where it was really easy just to put £100 into a tracker fund, and it tracks the American, S&P 500, for example. At the gym, I see people doing it on their phones. Loads of people.
eToro.
eToro,
Yeah.
loads of them, 212. I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Where it's very easy just to put money, small amounts, and let's see it grow. And you see it growing and something not growing when certain countries get invaded and stuff.
Yeah.
But
There's always risk.
there's risk.
So there's risk in
So
everything.
still stick on case one,
Mhm.
a young doctor.
should they be putting, rather than saying I'm going to go out and spend £200 on dinner with my friends, should they be saying I'm going to spend £100 and put 100 into one of the things on my phone where I can just quickly transfer it in seconds?
I think it very much depends on your appetite for risk.
Right. Yeah.
So if you have quite a high appetite for risk, maybe you would want to put your money onto the stock market. If you don't have a high appetite for risk, it's cash ISAs all the way. Would you agree with that, Carla?
I do, yeah. Going back to someone like Sarah, who wants to get on the property ladder, it wouldn't be investing the money, it'd be keeping it in cash, so that's readily accessible to use it as a deposit or for any buying costs, stamp duties, legal fees, etc. in your private property.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the case studies, but if you have or haven't, it talks about should she get into buy to let.
Yeah.
That's what it's talking about.
Yeah, we're going to come on to that. We're going to come on to that. We're definitely going to come on to that.
Sorry.
Can we move on to case study 2? That was a nice way to do the songs. Thank you, Stephen. So case study 2. Someone who's got a few bits of grey in his beard. He's a consultant, anaesthetist, been a consultant for about 6-7 years. Joint income with his partner is 210,000. They're hoping it will go up, but they have got that mortgage. They've been on the property ladder for a while. They've also got 2 kids, so they're paying school fees. And they work really hard. They do their NHS job, they do private practice. They're feeling really stretched. And they're thinking, should they continue building as much asset as possible? Or should they actually enjoy the time when the kids are young, do some nice traveling?
Quite philosophical, isn't it, really?
Yeah, do you want to take that one first?
I was just gonna say, when your children are young, you don't want to miss out when they're little, because they're only little once, aren't they? And there is definitely a balance to be had between building your wealth and also enjoying your life with your children. And I think it's quite a personal choice that people make in that sense. And I don't think necessarily this is a sort of accountancy question or a tax or wealth question. This is about how you want to live your life.
But there's balance between
Massively a balance, yeah.
you are in balance.
I am indeed, and I'm also a complete workaholic as well. Like Stephen here, you're a workaholic as well, aren't you?
Well,
Working at 3 o'clock in the morning.
and a complete failure because I got divorced and that's a failure. And my still pregnant, my ex-wife. That's because I'm paying for everything. No, but I am really friendly with her, genuinely, and it is.
Well, I think the people who are either home or watching this online or in the audience who feel they're working really hard, they're essentially in 2 jobs each, private practice and NHS or other roles, and they've got enough to have a nice enough house, to go on 1 or 2 nice holidays a year, pay the school fees, which obviously have gone up a lot with VAT. So what's the other advice? What else can they be doing? Because you want that money to be growing and working when you're sleeping, which is the whole thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So when
Make
your money
your
to
money
work.
working harder
Yeah.
for you.
So what advice would you give them? Obviously,
Yeah.
we mentioned ISAs already. Is that a good fit for them?
So again, I see people like this again all the time. It looks good on paper, huge tax bill that comes with that, VAT on school fees. What you're actually probably living off is probably not feeling like a lot, even though you see a huge salary on paper type thing. So yeah, it's looking at what have you got where and how can we increase what you've got, which is looking into potentially the investment management piece of that. I think time poor comes into that. A lot of the clients I work with, as I'm sure you all are, time poor in the sense that yes, you might have some knowledge and a bit of expertise. For example, your friend down at practice who says, oh, you should put your money on the FTSE whatever, or do a bit of the S&P. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a great strategy. It's ultimately having a professional that can take that away from you. So somebody just know that you can trust them and say, I know that I've got it sorted.
Sure.
Ultimately, and that's when that time poor comes into it. So yeah, it's using things like your ISA allowance, your wife's ISA allowance, or husband, whoever, whatever way around if you want to go. Children as well, junior ISAs for the children. Make sure you're maximising both of those. Pension allowances, don't need to worry too much because we know we've got the NHS pension scheme and that's kind of getting funded very generously. And then on top of that, it's looking into any alternative investment options.
Okay. So Carla, if you're thinking about all the doctors that you look after who are in that bracket 42, working really hard to dual income family, 2 kids. Who of all those doctors do you think they've cracked it? They're doing really well. Their finances are growing. They made the right investments versus someone who just took their eye off the ball and didn't do that. Can you compare and contrast those
Yeah.
two sort of clients of yours and what it can teach the audience here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say there's no right time to start, but it's certainly kind of having that conversation whenever. So for example, someone in their 40s, sitting down with a professional, reviewing what you've got, and doing that on a regular basis, making sure is everything on track to stop at 60, or is it going to be 55? You know, can we stretch it forward? What are your plans in life? Are you going to take your kids to uni? You know, all these types of things you need to plan for to make sure the funds are going to be there. So the most successful clients are the people that prioritize those conversations, I would say, and put time into it and make sure that it is invested correctly so that it's great, you know, in line with their risk appetite. And the clients who maybe aren't so successful, the people that pre-leave it too late, if I'm being honest. So I get that again quite often, 64, and they say I want to stop next year, and I'm like, okay, we haven't got a lot to work with here, but normally when we're talking about the NHS pension scheme, you're all going to be fine, depending on how much you want to spend, of course.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. And I just want to think also about going back to this couple, when they're thinking about treating themselves or getting a new car, those sorts of decisions, because you've got now these really great computer models that can plan, you know, how much money you'll have in your bank account in 2035 if you do A, B, and C. How accurate or how good are these models? Because that's what all the financial advisors are now using. And you can say to you, if you want to have a disposable income of this, the next 5 years, this is what you'll have. So you can really play around with the figures, can't you? And they can stick to those sort of guidelines. Is that something is the software that good?
Absolutely, yeah, it's my bread and butter. I've used it for 10 years now. This type of cash flow modelling software. It is incredible, especially for younger clients, because it brings your life, it brings everything to life, and it gives a method to the madness of looking at what scenarios can prop up when. So we can honestly model scenario after scenario, but to keep it simple, like I said before, it's looking at what is everything growing by at the moment, what's your tax status today, what's it going to be kind of on the way out, what do you take from where, when do you stop, other incomes, and all those sorts of things.
Clients get when they see the answers.
I mean, most of my clients like the answers. Not always. It's getting people on track. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things we have no control over. One of those being the stock market, and the next one being how long you're going to live. But the things we do have control over is your tax status. Where do you invest the money, and are you using all your tax wrappers, which is different products that you can put your money into. Now, when you see that, going back to the buying a new car as an example, let's say you've had a windfall, you've got 30k in your bank, lovely. Do you go and upgrade your car? That sounds great. Very great in terms of your time with your young children. And I completely see the emotional sense of that. However, when you model that out in an investment and you see that at retirement, it could potentially change your mind, because you're looking at even something, you know, relatively safe. You could say something like 5 to 6% annual growth. It's looking great, especially if it's in a tax-free vehicle. So it can help.
Yeah, because obviously the car's a depreciated asset, isn't it? So the moment you drive it off the forecourt, you've lost 30% anyway. With this particular case study, the household income is 210,000. I'm hoping it's split equally and it's £105,000 each. And there's just a bit of tax leakage in there. So there's the £100,000 tax trap that you're going to hit at exactly 100,000. So it's an abatement of the personal allowance at that point. So for every £2 you earn over, they take £1 away from you in terms of your personal allowance. So there are ways that you can do a bit more salary sacrifice, for example.
Tell us a bit about salary sacrifice.
Salary sacrifice. Look, you can buy lots of, it depends if your employer does it. So the NHS pension scheme is salary sacrifice.
Okay.
You can buy electric vehicles via salary sacrifice. There are cycle to work schemes. And there's tech schemes as well that you can do through salary sacrifice. But
so just to bring it below that threshold. So
absolutely. So you need to lose 5,000, or you can put it in as additional pension contributions somewhere else.
Okay.
So you can make those, but just get yourself under that £100,000, because actually you'll be better off for it in the long run. And hopefully at some point the government will move those allowances a bit further, a bit higher up, so that you don't lose them as soon.
So what point does it become? Because you don't necessarily stay at 100,000 for the rest of your life. When does it become worthwhile to jump to 140 or 100? Where's that sort of break-even point where all those extra hours worked is actually worth working? Because that's the thing that we all have to
Well,
face.
that's the huge difficulty.
Yes.
So they're taking away your personal allowance up to 125,000. So it's almost as if you either earn 100 or 150,
Okay.
and the scale between that's obviously quite large.
Yes.
What do you think on that one?
No, I agree. You need to earn over 125 or less than 100.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are caught by a penal 60-odd% tax rate.
Hefty, isn't it? Yeah.
But I'm not sure how many of you have the flexibility, or many James could have the flexibility of splitting his income with his wife or partner or something.
Yeah. But salary sacrifice could be if you want to buy a
I
electric
think salary sacrifice is very
So
good.
you bring us up below that threshold.
Yeah, the percentages have gone up on electric vehicles, but it's still a really, really good deal.
We'll all be driving electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Great. Probably James, who's 42, may be at that stage of his life where a relative may die, an aunt, a godparent, a parent, and may come into money. What's the best thing to do with that? Is it to put it all in a fund for the school fees? Is it to get to pay the mortgage down? Is it to put it on the stock market and let's see it grow exponentially? Who wants to take that first?
I'll take that. Again, another very popular question. Windfall, we call this. And it's, what do I do? Do I pay down all my debt? Do I invest the money? Do I do a bit of both?
Yeah.
I'll give you the really honest, frank answer is it depends on you. Do you sleep better at night with less debt? Just pay down your debt. And I've had clients before that really are super risk averse, and they are worried about their mortgages. And I'm a big fan of, I love debt. I'm not die with debt. We love debt. Debt vehicles are fantastic if they're in the right places, of course, with the right interest rates. So I would kind of probably try and talk them out of that, but sometimes the right answer is just pay down your debt. Depending on your scope for risk. So let's say we'll work on a scale of 0 to 10 and you come out maybe a number 6 on our risk scale, which is tailored to you. And then I'll probably be advising you to invest that money.
Okay.
And invest that somewhere tax efficient and somewhere where it's going to grow in line with your attitude to risk so that you can use that for your future self. And the goal of that is to hopefully outperform whatever interest rate you're paying on your debt in growth.
So can you go into that a bit deeper? Because let's say your mortgage is, let's say 4%, but you invest it, but you have to pay tax on that. So
Not always, it depends where it is. If it's in a stocks and shares ISA, it's tax free,
Good,
or you
yeah.
could use something like an offshore bond structure, which is
Yeah.
getting a little bit kind of groovy.
Yeah.
But for additional rate taxpayers, an offshore bond would be the next natural vehicle to
Okay.
use for tax planning and investment purposes. And the idea is, let's say if it can grow something like a 6, 7, 8% a year,
Yeah.
you're going to be doing better over the long term. And I can sit there and model it out for you. But again, you individually, if you are a risk averse person, you'd rather pay your debt down, that's the answer.
Okay, brilliant.
I would like to pick up something John said. I think it's good advice for everyone in the room. Most of the doctors that I've advised aren't great with numbers.
What?
We all have an exception.
We've got maths C levels and
And the reason is because you're just all too nice, okay? And I think you said you have to be a bit selfish with your own finances. Somebody said it. You said it. Maybe you said it. And I agree. You do. You have to take care of your own financial wellness, like you would your health wellness. And if you take a real interest in it, and John, without being breaching confidentiality, John is really knowledgeable about his financial affairs and stretches my ability to answer questions that monthly. But all of you, I would advise from as early as you can, get a grip of your financial affairs, use good advisors, use investment advisors, and understand your affairs, and don't just casually ignore it, because the more you get to know how your own money works, you'll make better decisions for yourself. I think it's a big
That's really good advice. Yeah. So we may move on to Do you want to have
Can I-
one point?
Quick question.
Of course you can.
Especially at this age, and from what you've been saying about debt versus investment, it seems to me most of us should be on a interest-only mortgage. Like, there's not really any point in repaying your mortgage, especially at this time of life when you need the money. You know,
I would say yes. I agree. You can tell by my answers. That would be my advice to you, because everything's a balance. It's like, as medical practitioners, you balance between surgery and medication. It's a constant dilemma of which route you
Yeah.
go. And so there is in financial health. It's all these have a common theme, these case studies, between the balance between spending today and living today and planning for the future. And debt allows you to have some choice in your life. So even though interest rates have gone up a bit and you don't get tax relief on interest like we used to get, it's still a better way to overall live. And as I said, die with debt. It even saves you 40% on
Yeah.
inheritance.
And also you can get mortgages which are part repayment, part interest only, can't you?
That's
And
exactly
that
what
makes it
I'm
a
saying.
sweet spot for some people.
Maybe not jump straight into the interest only. You could go to a part and part, and it will bring your monthly repayments down, and you can divert that into an investment, as an example, or free up some cash so you can use it month to month, depending on obviously how much
Or
the mortgage is.
where you can get, just the name of it's gone out of my head. No, back to back, where you offset mortgages. There, if you've got free cash, then an offset mortgage will allow you to pay 3% on your mortgage, but maybe earn 4 or 5 or 6 or 7% on some investment that Carla will put you into.
So lots of different things. Dr. Khan.
Thank you, that's been really helpful. I just would like to turn it around a little bit.
Yes.
And think like a clinician, a neurologist. We have a population. But can I just turn it around a little bit and move away from what that whole thing about having debt? What I think is really clear is that we really need legislation passed very quickly where people are advised to think about their own social care. We're living longer. People are living longer and getting to a point. I mean, for example, the NHS, quality of care, social care you'll get on the NHS is a particular level. I'm not going to comment on quality, but it's a particular level, but it has to be realistic. So when you look at what we're dealing with, so what I'm dealing with, what I'm seeing on wards every day, or what I'm seeing of people coming from nursing homes at a particular level, if you have that interest-only mortgage, that means that I actually think we should have no debt, so that you get to a point where if you are elderly, you can sell your own home and use that home to fund your social care. Because the probability is that we are going to live longer. We, unless you have a taste of what NHS social care is like, you will understand it is an emergency. You need to fund your own social care. So I'm slightly concerned about encouraging debt, and also I've been advised to move away from an interest-only mortgage, make sure you can pay off your house so that you pay off your debts. And then, if you are fortunate or unfortunate to become frail, 85, 90, needing carers and nursing homes, you've got somebody there to do that for you with a reasonable quality of life.
I think it's a great point. And if you look at the cost of good nursing home care, certainly around here in central London, or even in the suburbs of London, you could talk about 8 to 10 to 12, £15,000 a month. So the generation above us luckily made a lot of money in their properties, and they can do that.
Sorry,
Yeah. Yeah.
This is really important. Sorry. I think this is really important for you to think about this. So if you'd like to know the cost per week of care in a nursing home that's just about somewhere where you want to leave your relatives, the cost per week is £5,000 to £7,000 basic. A month. So you're looking at, this is the minimum.
Yeah.
So you're looking at £7,000 per month. And that's obviously after tax. So if you've got to think about all the things. So, and that's a standard that many people are very unhappy with. So they are unhappy with.
Really good. You're looking
No, if you want a good level of care, it's going to be.
That's really good because it's that whole idea of maybe we'll go on to case study 3, please. So that is really pertinent to this case because this is a GP who has worked really hard for the last 30 plus years, but bought really early. She bought her house in her late 20s with her partner, and that house is now worth a significant amount of money, plus other assets they've amassed. She hasn't got any mortgage. She didn't do interest-only mortgage, or she did and paid it off with all her investments. Children are off her hands. She feels, I'm comfortable. I've got a good life ahead of me. I still want to enjoy my life. So what should Anita be thinking about at 56? Coming up, maybe she's got another 3 or 4 years left to work full time. But as we heard from Nike Khan, one of our doctors in the audience, she may be facing significant care costs, either for her own parents or for her or her partner. So what should she be thinking about and protecting? And maybe she wants to leave something to her kids, even though they're independent, she wants to leave something to them. So do you want to start, Danielle?
Yes, there's sort of IHT planning in there. So does inheritance tax? Yeah. So does Dr. Anita Roberts want to leave money to her children? You can gift while you're alive as well. So you can have pets, which is potentially exempt transfers, and then you just have to survive for 7 years. You can also do something which is called gifts out of income, which is a really powerful tool. It just means that the person giving the money doesn't change their lifestyle, and it has to be gifts out of income, so money that they're getting each month, and then not capitals. That is a really, really powerful tool to use for inheritance tax planning.
So do you want to tell us a bit more about gifts out of income? So she's still drawing a salary, it has to be from her month. She has a previous.
Yes, so it could be out of salary, it could be out of her pensions that she receives, but it has to be, it can't be that your relatives are cashing in bonds or properties to pay for that amount of money, and it has to be regular and it has to be noted. And there's a special form that you have to fill in during the inheritance tax planning form filling process, where you have to demonstrate that as well. So that's quite important.
Okay, and if I was to take, because her pension will come soon.
Yes.
She'll get a lump sum because she'll be part of the old scheme. What should she do with that?
Well, she could gift it in theory, or she could invest it.
What she wants to use it? Travel, do things.
Well, this is the richest person in the graveyard concept. So it's quite philosophical. Should she travel? I think she should.
But this whole concept, I guess it's big in America, die with zero. There's a kind of
the decumulation, yeah.
Die with zero.
So really did upset me. Really.
Tell us about die with zero.
Well, because my son, you see, he keeps nagging me that I should do more and die with zero, and I just can't do it. I mean, so if
you can't spend it fast enough.
Spend it.
No, it's not. It's just it's a balance. I like a balance between today and tomorrow, and we've all got different balances. So
I think the world's going to change very soon because there are people saying there's going to be real advances in genetics. So we'll all have our genome and genetics and blah, blah, blah. We'll be able to predict when within a year or two we're going to die.
Oh, that's terrifying.
But that's what has happened very much in America. And so people are saying you can literally look at your financial plan and say, with my genes and my lifestyle, I'm going to maybe not be here after 87, or I'll be here at 87 but have severe dementia and need care, or these things. And that's probably the way it's going. But Carla, do you want to come in?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think going back to the example of, let's say, your tax-free cash lump sum from your NHS pension scheme, what should you do with the money? Spend it, enjoy it, invest it, or gift it. And gifting and investment can come hand in hand, especially if your children are not at the point where they are ready to receive a large sum of money. You can gift something into what's called a trust. So trust structure, I'm sure you're all familiar with that word. Essentially, it's gifting money, but with a few caveats in there. So it's just element of control. So it's control over to who gets the money when and what they essentially do with it, and that can be invested.
Yes.
Well.
Ed?
I would like to raise a leading question at the, let's say, it's slightly more risky and advanced end of the spectrum to do with EIS and SEIS, because it ties together the inheritance tax and the investments
Yeah,
and
lots
the
of
tax
relief
free.
available there.
Exactly.
About that.
And you'll tell us about how much of it is actually at risk. I'm not going to say that. I'll give you the example because there is a case for the generally senior doctor as investor. My investors, 85 of them are doctors who've effectively invested in a health tech startup, which is unusual, I grant you. But doctors generally, once they've tried products that are out there, can be quite savvy investors about products that they understand, not necessarily about general investment, but about products that they understand. And I wonder if you guys would say a bit about EIS, because I think it's not a very well-known asset class.
Absolutely.
So I think what we're talking about really, from what I understand, is that if the government wants to encourage you to invest in British business, in companies that are starting up, need more money to grow, and they give you big tax relief, don't they?
Yeah.
30% tax relief on that money, and any profits tax free. Is that right? Is that the sum total?
Correct. Yeah. So just as a bit of background, EIS is an enterprise investment scheme, and then you've got kind of the sister version to that, which is SEIS, which is seed enterprise investment scheme, even smaller and often riskier. In terms of how both of these products work, you're absolutely right. You get tax breaks because it is high risk, and it also backs small companies in order to get them started, essentially. So how they work is you get income tax relief, and you also get inheritance tax relief after 2 years of holding. Now, having said all of this, it is the highest risk asset class we're kind of looking at.
But it was a leading question.
So you tried and tested it.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's 10 out of 10 on the risk scale. I've seen clients lose 100% of their investment. It's something
There's downside protection as well.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, what
So
is it? Well,
it's loss relief.
So the actual capital at risk, and when you do the maths, is I think it's what you get 45% downside protection and 30% back. So the actual capital at risk is comparatively low.
Okay.
I would say with these types of investments, when I've seen clients use them, and you've already kind of alluded to that, it's when they know the business. So it's often a friend who set up a business when we're looking at the seed enterprise investment schemes, very small startup companies. Now with that, it's if you know it and you understand it, you probably feel quite safe putting your money there. And often that's where I've seen the wins from these types of investments. But I think if you're going into it blind, there's many other things you can put your money into before you get to that scale. But yeah, it's worth it if you know the business and you believe in it, and you know the person running it, as an example. Absolutely go for it.
And there's some big funds that aren't just a friend's business, like the big sort of venture capital funds that will invest in. I saw one online the other day where there's a new physio company that I think they're going to get a massive government contract soon, because they can do everything about back pain and get people back to work, all online, all video consultations. And I think this friend VCT have backed them and given them 12 million or something. So those sorts of businesses. So you may not be the one directly investing in the physio app business to these physios who set up this company, but you'll be part of the portfolio of that venture capital fund doing.
Yeah.
That's one of their things they've invested in.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah, so venture capital trust, the VCTs, and there is a provider, I think it's called Triple Point, and they're actually just based down the road. They do a lot of healthcare related, which is maybe what you're mentioning there. But what that does is it spreads the risk, because it's multiple companies. It's probably potentially a bit more due diligence that's gone into it, lots of research behind these companies and how they work currently. So I'd say from a safety perspective, probably a bit more safer. Then, for example, that would be the next thing you would probably go to.
So invest in many companies. Right. We may also do a big question. And Maureen, going to come up and to the stage. So Maureen Obu is a lawyer, but she specializes in property, and buy-to-let was certainly my generation's nirvana. And she's going to say a few words about, is it still worth doing buy-to-let and what the pitfalls are?
Oh, okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gents. Maureen Oakby, I'm not a medic, so full disclaimer. I manage a law firm in London, Holborn, near Chancery Lane. We also have a North London a branch in Finchley, so that's where I was today, hence the lateness. Okay, so I help a lot of property investors. In particular, I'm interested in helping a lot more regulated professionals like ourselves, so lawyers like me, come to me, medics. Oh, should I sit down?
You can't see at home.
Okay, should I sit down or stand?
That's fine, yeah.
That's okay, great, okay. So, who's in the room that's an investor? I'm assuming 90% of you are. Okay, so there's obviously buy to let, there's HMO. Does everybody know what HMO is? House of multiple occupation, where you've got multiple occupied properties. They tend to be, well, back in the day, certainly with all the regulations now, they tend to be a lot more lucrative than the standard buy to let, because if somebody moves out, you've got more tenants to get rent from. Unfortunately, with the Renters' Rights Act now, there are a lot more regulations to comply with. And I'm seeing a lot of claims against landlords and even claims by former tenants within 12 months of somebody moving out. They do a bit of search on the internet. Perhaps they had one of their friends down the road got thousands of pounds out of their landlords. They then make a claim. So I'm seeing a lot of that at the moment. Claims for disrepair is on the increase as well. And then enforcement actions. So enforcement actions could be for things like planning. So you may have bought a property, your conveyancing lawyer should have done the search to find out if there are any outstanding legal issues. If they haven't, and your property needs planning, you could still get that enforcement letter from the local authority. So something to be aware of. I know obviously a lot of us that are very busy professionals tend to hand over our properties to be managed by letting agents. And I'm seeing mistakes that have been made by letting agents costing thousands of pounds because the property owner is still, unfortunately, still responsible ultimately. And what they tend to do is they receive the letter, sometimes because of high turnover in the letting agents, and I'm talking big letting agents, I shan't name any names, that somebody have missed that letter in the office. 2 months down the line, panic. They say, "Oh, Mr. Landlord, we received this letter on your behalf. We wash our hands of it. Find your own independent legal advice." I'm sure most people have heard that. Get your own independent legal advice, and that's when it falls on my desk, and then we quite quickly start responding to that letter on behalf of the landlord. I'm also seeing a lot of rent repayment order, which is where they can actually claim up to 12 months. Since the Renters' Rights Act, they can claim up to 2 years. So, okay, one big thing that actually is the big one, make sure that your letting agents have served the information sheet. Because if they haven't on your behalf as a landlord, you could be fined £7,000. That's the absolute minimum. I was talking to a group of landlords on Monday, a room full of 800 to 900 people, I think, developers, you name it, everybody that's in property was in that room. And an agent was talking about having served that document. But equally, as a landlord, you have a responsibility to check that they have done it on your behalf and to send you the proof. So, John, I'm going to just make an offer to your colleagues here.
Home and and then anyone's
Okay.
can I just say one thing?
Yes.
If anyone's at home, we're going to go to Q&A soon, so please put questions in the chat.
Thank you. So, because obviously I know you're all incredibly busy saving lives, I tend to, it's exclusive to medics only. I'll do that once a month on a Saturday, whereby I offer consultations to healthcare professionals, because I come from a family of medics myself, so I've seen it. My dad was a medic, my mum was a nurse, cousins are doctors, so I understand the pressures. We've offered some doctor's appointments and they just simply can't make them. Someone will pay for the consultation fee, and obviously something happens, they have to run into clinic. So I've started offering once a month on a Saturday. Zoom clinics, or somebody can come in if they wanted to at the Finchley office. I'm not going to come in Central London on a Saturday, but yeah, so that's something I do offer to healthcare professionals. We're also offering portfolio reviews at the moment for a fixed fee. So some agents are okay, some will want to work with us, and some are thinking, oh, you don't need to go to a lawyer, that's going to cost you money. But actually the lawyer will see what they've missed and then make their recommendations. So we're not replacing your agents, we're working hand in hand with them to ensure that you are safe, because ultimately, as regulated professionals, if we're convicted for even though it's a housing offence, it's still a criminal matter, and we have to declare it to our regulators. So that's the key here, really. Most housing lawyers miss that point. Because I'm a regulatory solicitor, I don't miss it because I understand the consequences.
Thank you. Right, thanks so much, Maureen. So that's the slide on whether you want to do buy-to-let. And Stephen, you've got a comment on the market.
I just want a bit wider on buy-to-let, just to give you guys thoughts that you may or may not have considered. I think about property as a landlord, if you were thinking of getting into the market, it is about what I call a blended yield. It is about capital growth on the property and income growth. And in today's world, with lower capital growth, the returns that you get from buy-to-lets nowadays are lower than they used to be. Once you finish paying the agents, the service charges, if it's an apartment, you don't pay council tax because that's paid by the occupier. The repair costs, the accountants, the lawyers, and all the other costs, you'll be lucky if you get 4 or 5%. That's a kind of the best return. So unless you get capital growth, you're not going to really do much better than cash. So just think about carefully if you get into buy-to-let. The legislation now is very unhelpful for landlords. So I hope most of you are landlords rather than tenants. If you're tenants, you're slightly better off, but you're not really better off because you've got to live somewhere. You don't really move out. So
But what about that whole idea of having diversified income streams so that you're thinking about your salary you make now in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you're thinking, how am I going to survive? Even though the NHS pension is very good, how am I going to survive on that pension, which is going to be at most 40% of your current salary?
And that was the last point I really want to make on all the case studies, is when you retire, it's not about how much capital you've got, it's about how much income you've got, because you've still got to live. So you've got to put yourself in a position, I really, this modelling is brilliant for that, you've got to put yourself in a position where you've got enough income from your assets that you can live the lifestyle that you want to, dream of, but at least you've got to, it's about income, not capital. And you've got to focus later on in life about where the income's going to come from. Otherwise, you're going to have to sell capital to live.
Mm. So that, I'm going to wrap up very soon. So think of your questions. I'm going to take a few questions from the audience and a few from people at home. But bearing in mind that most people will have to take a drop in income when they retire. Their pension at best will be 40% of what they currently earn. But certainly in the early years of retirement, you may be spending quite a lot because you'll be traveling, you'll be doing nice things. And your main asset may be your house, which obviously you still need to live in. What ways can you maybe draw money out from your main asset and live a bit, but have money put aside in case you have the care home needs later in life?
So I'll answer that. Yeah,
Thanks,
so
Paula.
again, this comes into planning earlier so that you can get money into different investment vehicles so that when you get to the point of stopping work, and that's your main income stream stopping, state pension switches on, NHS pension switches on, it's going to be a reduction of income. Modelling out what do you actually need every month, net spend after all tax. And then from there, anything additional which you're not getting from your pension, do you take from your ISA? you take from your bond investment or whatever else you've got. So that's
Sure.
where planning early really does help.
Sure.
And also, again, going back to my lovely cash flow model, which I've mentioned a few times, I should have actually brought a picture of it now, because although it sounds like I'm talking about this thing which doesn't exist, but anyway, going back to care fees as well, this is always something that's planned for, and everything that we've said tonight in this room, there's no one size fits all with financial advice. You need to have specialist advice built around you, and the answer is not always die with debt. It's a strategy, a favoured strategy right now, but it's not always the right answer. In that scenario which we gave before was assuming they do have other investment vehicles. And one of the main things we look at when we do retirement income modelling is, you're absolutely right, we've got kind of, we call these the go-go years. So your first 10 years of retirement, you'll be spending the most, trust me. You're going to be traveling, you'll be in good health, you're doing all these things, potentially got grandkids running around, all those kind of things. You then got your slower years, the slow go years, we call these mid years of retirement. This can be 10 to 15 years, depending on longevity. Obviously, we don't know what that looks like. We base that on life expectancy age of how old you are now. We model that out just from the ONS as an example. But when it comes to actual cash flow modelling, we run that to age 100 at the moment, which is an FCA regulation. So when we look at things like long-term care fees, it starts up here, slow years, and then it goes right back up again. So we always look at the impact of care fees, modelling out with that inflation linked as well, because it is a huge cost at the moment, and we are aware of that. For care fees,
Insurance.
sometimes,
premiums.
again, getting that in early. Absolutely, yeah, but worth paying for most of the time.
So should we take questions from the floor? And then, Siobhan, have you got some questions from the people at home? Siobhan's one of our council members.
Okay, there's one from Katie. It says, in your experience, what is the most effective approach to paying off debt for someone with a good income, but competing priorities such as a mortgage and high childcare costs? Is it generally better to focus on clearing debt as quickly as possible, or to balance debt repayment with building savings and maintaining pension contributions? I think from her other question, she is a 30-something registrar with a 3-year-old, and she also wants to know what should she be doing to start safeguarding her child and her financial future, please.
My initial reaction to that was option 2, so it's obviously a balanced mandate on that one. What were the other points that she made in there? Sorry.
Protecting her child, yeah.
It's saving really for protection of her and her child's future. There was one point actually that was made in one of the last case studies about a potential inheritance that was going to be received. I think we kind of skipped over that bit, and I just wanted to say about the a deed of variation that can be done about skipping generations.
Yeah,
So that's quite an important inheritance tax planning tool as well. If you are to receive, if you have lots of assets anyway, and you are going to receive more assets potentially from your parents or grandparents, it's usually advised at that point that you skip a generation. So you can do a deed of variation after somebody has died. You have up to 2 years to do it, but it just means that therefore you reduce the value of your estate that you then pass on to somebody else. So I just thought that was worth answering that. But definitely for Katie, that's a balanced approach is definitely the right one.
I think the best thing she could do for her child is education. I think educate them as well as you can so that they build a career for themselves. That would be my advice to her child.
Yeah.
Make sure they're happy.
Any other questions from the people at home? Okay.
It's about pensions. So when should we expect the annual allowance tax bill to land, and how should we handle it? And is it the same for other public pension schemes? This is coming from Sarah. She is in a relationship. They're both doctors, but one has a military pension and the other is a local government. Please.
Thanks. Pensions. Who wants to tackle a pension question?
Shall I go first? As far as So was the question what? I don't know about military pensions. I'm sorry. The
The annual allowance.
the annual allowance is
We don't know when they arrive, do we? That's a problem.
we
isn't it?
don't, and that is the problem. And it's not just this government; it's been many years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So some accountants estimate, and some just say when it arrives, and we'll deal with it when it arrives. Have you got any feelings one way or the other?
We're on the when it arrives, as you
okay.
know. I think it's dangerous estimating.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Okay. Right. We've got time for one. Oh, yeah. Do you want who's? Yeah. Go on, take the mic.
Thanks very much. So again, on pensions, my name's James, I'm 42, but I'm not an anaesthetist. Slight joke, nobody's mentioned Bitcoin tonight, is that for a reason? And then on pensions, so just kind of thinking about black swan events and potentially with the country's economy and debt as it stands at the moment and mooting for IMF bailouts, just thinking worst case scenario, we've seen what happened in Greece with the public sector pensions over there. How sure are we that an NHS pension is what it says it is?
You know, pensions, there is no pot of money. The government doesn't have a pot of money for you, me. It survives because all of you work. So shortly when I retire, you carry on working because I need a pension. So I think it would be unthinkable to think that pensions will stop. But there, at some point, we will come to the limits of our borrowing powers as a country. So it's a problem, which is why they keep pushing the years out.
And the other thing is, it's political, isn't it? So pensioners vote, the grey vote.
Yeah.
So they're very loath to destabilise pensions. And also, I think there's some incredible statistics, like 1 in 15 people work in the NHS across, it's the biggest employer, 1.6 million or something. So to disenfranchise all those people. And the other thing is, we learned from the McLeod judgment that you can't pick off certain public sector workers and not others. So when they came to the doctors and our pensions were, then the judges said, no, that's not fair, it's going to affect us. And therefore the government had to have a level playing field for everyone, firefighters, judges, council workers. And that's why the McLeod judgment came in. They said it had to be fair for everyone. You couldn't just pick off certain things. So obviously it can never be super safe, but if you think about, they have to do it for all the public sector, how many people work in the NHS, and the grey vote, I think our pensions hopefully will be quite safe.
Do you all use scheme pays? Do you, where you can for paying your pensions?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do.
Tax
rather than pay the big lump sum.
I would try. I don't know if you're into this, but
Yeah.
If you get a tax bill as a result of your pension increase, use the scheme pay. Don't pay it yourself.
Yeah, because it works, particularly if you're near the end, doesn't it? Because the compound interest isn't so bad, but if you're 35 and you're going to pay compound interest over 30 years, it may not be so attractive.
Then you don't have the money.
Exactly. So it's a difficult one. Right, I think we're going to, unless there's any burning questions. Quick one there, yeah. Yeah.
It was talking about the it's not really been mentioned massively today. I'm not sure if it's just an individual thing, but we were talking about bringing down your salary under 100k, and with a couple of the case studies, and I think a lot of people here, you have multiple jobs. I've had a lot of pros and cons advice about having things like a limited company for one of your jobs, so for private work, to kind of secure that, but then the difficulties in taking it out. And yeah, just wondering if you guys have any advice about that, please.
Yeah, so the 100,000 will still apply even if you have a limited company, because it's dependent upon what you take out of the limited company. So if you can keep your money inside the limited company and not extract through dividends, then you will be able to. It just allows you just to regulate your income. But obviously where the 100,000 is, and then a lower threshold is also around the childcare hours as well. So you get that double whammy. You no longer get childcare additional hours. You know, you get hit by the abatement of the personal allowance. It does appear to be quite unfair, but absolutely you can control your income through a limited company. And depends who you're working for. If you're working for yourself, you know, potential IR35 issues maybe, or off payroll working. You just need to be really cautious and get some really good advice around that.
Right. Yeah. The limited company thing is that there are three ways you can structure companies, LLPs, or have your private practice through your own income as a self-employed. And it's all about effective tax rates. And it's all about, I think, as Danielle said, it's about if you've got surplus income that you don't need and you can afford to save it, then you would have a company because you can control it. If you have an LLP or private practice on you in your own name, you pay tax on your profit, whether you draw it or not. And companies will allow you other tax planning, shares you can share with wives, partners, even children. So there's some inheritance tax planning. So yeah, take good advice and look at it as a sensible option.
Great, thank you. So I think we've come to the end, really. I know there's loads of questions still, but I think some of you can stay on afterwards, up on the lovely roof upstairs. So we're going to have rooftop drinks and food next. So, but I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. All the people who were at home as well watching. And can we have the slide deck? Because a few things, slide messages to say as well. So specialist groups. So Rishik, do you want to stand up? She's yeah. Who's the chair of the private practice group? So if you're interested in private practice, you're thinking I'll never get that mortgage paid off unless I do a bit of private practice. You want to network with other people doing private practice, please meet Rishika, and that's a QR code to join. This is a picture from a dinner we had a couple of months ago, or a month ago, or so, just last month. Yeah, about a month, yeah, which is the inaugural dinner. So it's a really vibrant group of doctors in private practice. Next slide. There's a health tech network, and that's where I think it's about 130 or 140 people that all came out of our Google event about 18 months ago, where doctors who are very interested in innovation and health tech. So if you want to join that group, please do. They had an event a few weeks ago online, and the next event is actually going to be run by them. This is it. Ambient voice. It's all coming to a hospital clinic near you, if it's not there already. I used it in one of my NHS clinics on Monday for the first time, and it saved about an hour of my admin time. Is it just the beginning? Because obviously that's the start of, you know, doing your clinic letters and so forth, but it's also going to then do all your referrals to other centres or other things. It's going to take notes on your ward rounds. It's going to give you clinical decisions. It's going to summarise all the, you know, when you on a ward round, you have to go through 20 days worth of inpatient stay and all their results. It will just summarise all of that. So the various companies all competing to get NHS contracts. So we're going to have an event at the last week of September with some of the big players in this whole area of the electronic patient record and ambient voice and so forth. And that's going to be in central London at the end of September. So that's the next event. Thank you. Next slide. Another, which will be our annual. So the health tech group, we're going to do one or two online events a year, and then one big showcase event, which will be the one in September. Next slide. And just say thank you. And if you can leave your last slide, if you can leave your badges so we can recycle, because we are good recyclers. So please recycle your badge, or the plastic bit at least. And we're going to then move upstairs. So thanks all for coming. Can I just say thank you to the panelists? Carla, Stephen, and Danielle, and Maureen, who gave us the buy-to-let property advice. I also want to thank Howden for hosting us, and they'll be circulating to talk to you about indemnity and insurance, all important matters. And the team, the support staff at Howden, both catering and our IT support for doing that. And then my fellow committee or council members like Siobhan and the other two all helped create tonight. And Marco, who's one of our, who does all the digital, so all the nice emails you get and all the LinkedIn posts and things, that's Marco's craftsmanship. So to the roof we go. Enjoy your summer evening. Thank you.